My mom didn't yell. She just shoved my desk across the room like my career was cheap furniture she could rearrange. My brother stood there smiling, measuring the wall for his studio while my monitors flickered. I said okay, because protesting would only make me the villain. So I packed and left. By sunrise, my phone was vibrating off the table. The second I disappeared, their whole world started collapsing. My name is Kayla Mitchell. I am 33 years old, and silence is the most expensive commodity I own. I work for a company called North Pine Risk Solutions. You have likely never heard of them, and if I am doing my job correctly, you never will. I deal in corporate disaster scenarios. I analyze data patterns that predict market crashes, supply chain failures, and internal embezzlement schemes. My work requires a dedicated server connection, 2 encrypted hard drives, and absolute, unbroken concentration. A single decimal point misplaced in my line of work does not just mean a bad grade, it means millions of dollars in liability. For the last 8 months, since I moved back into my childhood home to save for a down payment in this impossible housing market, I have operated out of the upstairs spare room. It was not much, just a 10 by 10 box with beige carpet that smelled faintly of old cedar. But I had transformed it. I bought the desk. It was a heavy, standing-capable oak slab that cost me $800. I bought the dual 27-inch 4K monitors so I could run spreadsheets alongside live data feeds. I bought the acoustic foam panels lining the north wall to dampen the sound of the neighborhood traffic. I paid for the upgraded fiber optic internet package that ran into the house, a bill that was roughly $120 a month. I paid for the router. I paid for the electricity that powered it all. That room was not just a room, it was my cockpit. It was the engine that generated the money that paid for the groceries in the fridge downstairs and the gas in my mother's car. And on Tuesday night, at 7:15 in the evening, my mother decided to evict me from it. She did not knock. Deborah does not believe in knocking because she believes privacy is a barrier to family intimacy. She walked in while I was in the middle of a deep dive analysis on a logistics firm in Chicago. I had my noise-canceling headphones on, but I felt the vibration of her footsteps. I slid one ear cup off. "Mom, I'm working. I have a deadline at—" "We need to move this," she said. She did not wait for a response. She did not ask. She walked straight to the side of my $800 desk, planted her feet, and shoved. The sound was hideous. It was the screech of heavy metal legs dragging across hardwood that had lost its finish years ago. My coffee mug rattled violently, sending a wave of lukewarm hazelnut roast over the rim and onto my coaster. My monitors wobbled like skyscrapers in an earthquake. The power strip underneath, which I had carefully velcroed to the frame to keep the cables managed, ripped free with a sickening Velcro tear sound. "Mom." I stood up, my hand hovering over my keyboard to save my work. "What are you doing? I'm in the middle of a session." "Carter needs the light," she said, grunting as she gave the desk another shove. She was surprisingly strong when she felt righteous. She pushed my entire livelihood 2 feet away from the wall, exposing the dust bunnies and the carefully routed Ethernet cable. "The afternoon sun hits this wall perfectly." He checked with an app. I stared at her. My brain was trying to process the logic, but there was no logic. There was only Deborah's logic. "Carter needs the light," I repeated, my voice flat. "For the studio," she said, wiping her hands on her apron as if she had just done me a favor by tidying up. "We talked about this, Kayla." "No," I said. "We didn't. You talked. I said I'm working." Then he appeared. Carter leaned against the doorframe. My younger brother, 26 years old. He was wearing a beanie indoors, despite it being 72 degrees in the house. He held a tape measure in one hand and his phone in the other. Filming the room. Filming my room. He didn't look at me. He looked at the wall my mother had just cleared. "Yeah," Carter said, nodding to himself. "If we put the acoustic tiles in a checkerboard pattern there, the reverb will be sick, and the RGB strips can run along the molding." He stepped into the room, stepping over my laptop bag like it was trash on the sidewalk. He walked up to my desk, my workspace, where confidential client data was currently minimized on the screen, and tapped the monitor bezel with his knuckle. "You're gonna have to move these, Kay," he said. "I need the desk space for the mixer and the boom arm. The aesthetic needs to be clean, minimalist." I looked at my mother. "You want me to move my work setup?" "Where the kitchen table." "Don't be dramatic," Deborah said. She began unhooking my calendar from the wall, the whiteboard where I had mapped out the next 3/4 of risk assessments. She erased a week's worth of deadlines with the swipe of her thumb. "The kitchen is too high traffic. Carter needs quiet for recording." "I need quiet," I said, my voice rising just a fraction. "I have client meetings. I handle sensitive financial data. I cannot work in a common area." Carter let out a sigh, the kind of sound a teenager makes when asked to take out the garbage. He turned his phone camera toward me, and for a second, I panicked, wondering if he was live streaming this. "The basement is free," Carter said. He gestured vaguely toward the floor. "It's underground, so the sound isolation is actually better. Natural soundproofing. Plus, you don't need natural light for spreadsheets, right? It's just numbers." The basement. They meant the laundry room. A concrete box next to a 20-year-old furnace that shuddered every time it kicked on. A room with one flickering fluorescent bulb and a ceiling height of 6 feet. A room where the Wi-Fi signal went to die. "You want me to work in the laundry room," I said. It wasn't a question. "It's a home office suite," Deborah corrected me, using that tone she uses when she is trying to rewrite reality. "We can put a rug down. It will be cozy. Carter is launching his podcast next week. Kayla, this is his big break. He has 300 followers on TikTok already. He needs a professional environment." I looked at the monitors. The calendar notification blinked in the corner of the right screen. "Meeting with VP of Operations, 8:00 a.m. tomorrow." I looked at Carter. He was already peeling a strip of adhesive off a box of LED lights he had brought in. He hadn't bought those lights. I knew he hadn't. I paid the credit card bill last week. I recognized the charge from Amazon. $50 for lighting equipment. I had paid for the very lights he was using to displace me. I looked at Deborah. She was beaming at him. She looked at him with a hunger, a desperate need for him to be the special one, the creative genius who just needed a little push. She looked at me, and she saw a utility bill. She saw a checking account. She saw a piece of furniture that could be shoved into the basement to make room for the art. "Carter needs this," Deborah said softly, placing a hand on my arm. It was meant to be comforting, but it felt like a shackle. "You're established. Kayla, you're strong. You can work anywhere. He just needs a launch pad. Be a sister. Help him out." My heart hammered against my ribs. It was a slow, heavy thud. If I argued, I knew exactly what would happen. Deborah would cry. She would talk about how hard she tried to keep this family happy. Carter would storm out, claiming I was sabotaging his creative process, that I was jealous of his freedom. I would be the villain. I would be the cold, corporate robot who didn't care about art or family or dreams, and nothing would change. The desk was already moved. The decision had been made over dinner while I was upstairs working. I looked at the Ethernet cable stretched to its limit. 1 more inch and the head would have snapped off in the port. They had severed me. They just didn't know it yet. "Okay," I said. The word hung in the air. Carter stopped peeling the adhesive. Deborah blinked, surprised by the lack of a fight. "Okay," Deborah asked. "Okay," I said again. I reached out and saved my spreadsheet. I closed the laptop. I powered down the monitors. The screens went black, reflecting the 2 of them standing in my space. "You're right. The basement is quieter." "See?" Carter grinned, clapping his hands together. "I told you she'd get it. Thanks, Kay. You won't regret this. When I'm sponsored by energy drink companies, I'll buy you a new, whatever it is you do." "Yeah," I said. "Sure." I unplugged the surge protector. I began coiling the thick power cables. I didn't unplug the monitors or the heavy equipment yet. I just took my laptop, my external encrypted hard drive, and my physical notebook. "I'll move the big stuff tomorrow," I lied. "I'll set up downstairs tonight." "Perfect," Deborah said. She was already mentally measuring the windows for blackout curtains. I'll help you carry the laundry baskets out of the way later. Don't worry about it, I said. I've got it. I walked out of the room. I walked down the hallway, past the family photos where Carter was always in the center, and I was always slightly out of focus or holding the bags. I walked into my bedroom, the small guest room I slept in, and I closed the door. I turned the lock. The click sounded like a gunshot in the quiet house. I did not go to the basement. I did not move laundry baskets. I sat on the edge of my bed and opened my laptop. My hands were shaking, not from sadness, but from a cold, crystalline rage. It was the kind of anger that clarifies things. It burned away the guilt. It burned away the obligation. It burned away the years of telling myself that this is just what families do. They had not just moved a desk. They had endangered my contract. They had disrespected my profession. They had taken the roof I paid for and told me I belonged in the foundation. I opened my backpack. I packed my passport. I packed my birth certificate. I packed the Social Security card I kept in the fireproof lockbox under the bed. I packed the backup drive containing 5 years of tax returns. I looked around the room. I didn't need the clothes in the closet. I didn't need the old books. I needed the tech. And I needed the documents. Everything else was just stuff. I opened a new incognito window on my browser. I didn't want the history to sync to the family iPad downstairs. I typed in furnished rentals, immediate move-in. I had looked at these apps 100 times in the last 6 months. I had countless saved searches for apartments in the city, nice places with floor-to-ceiling windows and security concierges. I had never clicked apply because of the guilt, because Deborah would say I was abandoning her, because Carter would say I was too good for them, because I was saving money to help the family. I looked at the price of a studio apartment in the Westbridge district. $2,400 a month. It was expensive. It was steep. But then I thought about the basement. I thought about the damp concrete. I thought about Carter sitting in my chair, adjusting my height settings, speaking into a microphone I bought, under lights I paid for, talking about how hard his hustle was. I clicked apply now. I filled out the forms with a speed that came from muscle memory. I uploaded my proof of income, my very substantial proof of income that my family seemed to think appeared by magic. Credit check approved. Security deposit required $2,400. First month's rent required $2,400. $4,800. I transferred the money from my savings account, the account Deborah thought was empty because I told her things were tight last month, so I wouldn't have to buy Carter a new gaming console. Transaction complete. Key code will be emailed upon arrival. I sat back. The digital clock on my nightstand read 10:45 p.m. Downstairs, I could hear the muffled sound of voices. They were laughing. Carter was probably explaining his vision for the studio. Deborah was probably making him a sandwich. They were happy. They had won. They had reclaimed the space. They had put Kayla back in her box. I zipped up my backpack. It was heavy, dense with the weight of my real life. I laid down on the bed, fully dressed. I wasn't going to sleep. I was waiting for the sun. I was waiting for the silence to be absolute. I wasn't just moving out. I was disappearing. And when the sun came up, and the internet bill that was in my name didn't get paid, and the fridge didn't magically restock itself, and the studio went dark because the power was in my name too, they would realize that the furniture they just shoved into the basement was the only thing holding the house up. I closed my eyes and listened to the house settle. Okay, I thought. You want the room? You can have the room. You can have the whole damn house. Lying in the dark, waiting for the sun to rise, gives you a lot of time to think about how you got there. You do not end up locked in your childhood bedroom at 33, plotting a tactical retreat from your own family. Because of one bad night, you end up there because of 1,000 small cuts that you pretended did not bleed. I stared at the ceiling fan, a fixture that had been wobbling since 1999, and I thought about the architecture of my family. It was built on a very specific foundation. I was the load-bearing wall, and Carter was the decoration. It started when we were kids. It was subtle. The way erosion is subtle until the cliff face falls off. I was the easy child. I was the one who did my homework without being asked. I was the one who packed my own lunch because Deborah was too tired. I was the one who understood that money was finite. I remember the day I got my full scholarship letter for university. It was a state school, sensible, with a good economics program. I had worked for 4 years to get those grades, staying up until 2 in the morning, terrified of being average. I put the letter on the kitchen counter. Deborah came home, read it, and smiled. She said, "That is good. Kayla, that is one less thing for me to worry about." That was it. I was a problem solved. I was a bill that did not need to be paid. 2 days later, Carter, who was 15 at the time, drew a charcoal sketch of the neighbor's dog. It was decent, not great, but decent. Deborah framed it. She hung it in the hallway. She posted it on Facebook with a caption that read, "My son's soul is so deep. He sees the world differently. We have a true artist in the house." She took him out for ice cream to celebrate his vision. I stayed home and filled out my student loan paperwork for the costs the scholarship did not cover. I did not hate him for it then. I just accepted the roles. I was the sturdy oak. He was the orchid. Oaks do not need watering. Orchids die if the room is 2 degrees too cold. The real trouble started 8 months ago. I moved back home because the economy felt like it was trying to strangle me. My rent in the city had gone up by 40% in a single year. I was making good money at North Pine, but I was watching my savings stagnate. I made a logical, calculated decision. I would move back into the empty nest, pay Deborah a modest rent which would help her, since Dad had been gone for years, and I would save for a down payment on a condo. It was supposed to be a symbiotic arrangement. 6 months, maybe a year, a business transaction between adults who loved each other. But the moment I carried my boxes over the threshold, the dynamic shifted. I reverted to being the daughter, and they reverted to being the dependents. It began with the utilities. The first month I was back. The electricity bill was high. It was July, and the air conditioning was running hard. Deborah sighed loudly while looking at the paper bill on the counter. She rubbed her temples. She talked about how her part-time job at the library did not pay enough to cover the surge pricing. "I'll get this one," I said. It was $240. I paid it without blinking. It felt like the right thing to do. I was living there, after all. But the next month, the bill came, and she just left it on my placemat at the dinner table. She did not ask. She just placed it there, like it was my homework. Then it was the internet. The Wi-Fi was slow, and Carter was complaining about lag while he was gaming. He threw a controller at the wall one night because his connection dropped. Deborah looked at me with those pleading eyes. "You need good internet for work, right?" she asked. So, I upgraded the plan. I put it on my auto-pay, $120 a month. Carter stopped screaming at the television. So I told myself it was the price of peace. Then it was the streaming services. I came downstairs one evening to find Carter trying to log into HBO. "We don't have this," he asked, looking at me like I had failed to stock the fridge with milk. "I have an account," I said. "I'll log you in." A week later, I got a notification that my password had been changed. Then I saw a charge for the premium family plan. Carter had upgraded it. When I asked him, he shrugged and said, "I needed the 4K resolution for research. Filmmakers need to see the details." K. He wasn't a filmmaker. He was a guy who watched movies until 3 in the morning. It snowballed. It wasn't just bills. It was a lifestyle subsidy. Deborah stopped buying groceries. Or rather, she stopped buying the real groceries. She would buy bread and milk. But if we wanted dinner, she would say, "I am just so exhausted today." That was my cue. I would open the delivery app. I would order Thai food, or pizza, or sushi. For 3 people. $60 here, $80 there. If I suggested cooking, Carter would say he had a sensitivity to gluten this week, or he was trying a paleo diet, or he just couldn't handle the smell of frying onions because of his sensory processing issues. So I paid. I paid because it was easier than arguing. I paid because every time I pulled out my credit card, Deborah would smile and say, "It is so nice to have the family taking care of each other." But we weren't taking care of each other. I was taking care of them. Then came the career investments. Carter has had 5 careers in the 8 months I have been here. First, he was going to be a photographer, then a graphic designer, then a dropshipping entrepreneur. Now, it was the podcast and streaming. Each phase required gear. I remember coming home 3 months ago to find a massive package on the porch. It was a Canon camera lens, a serious piece of glass. $1,200. My phone buzzed with a fraud alert from my bank. I walked into the kitchen, the box in my arms. Carter. He was eating a bowl of cereal that I had paid for. Oh, sick it came. Carter, I said, my voice shaking. Why did I just get a charge for $1,200? He looked genuinely confused. Oh, did it use your card? My bad. It must be saved as the default on the family Amazon account. I clicked, buy now so fast I didn't check. You need to pay me back, I said. Deborah intervened. She was wiping the counter, her back to me. Kayla, don't stress him out. He has a wedding gig lined up next month. He'll pay you back when the client pays him. You know you have the liquidity. He's just starting out. The wedding gig never happened. The couple went in a different direction. The lens sat on a shelf, gathering dust, until he sold it to a pawn shop for $400 because he needed cash for a concert ticket. I never saw a dime of the original $1,200. That was the night I started the spreadsheet. I did not do it out of malice. I did it out of a desperate need to cling to reality. I felt like I was being gaslit. I felt like I was the crazy one for thinking that $2,000 a month in incidental expenses was not normal family bonding. I opened a file on my secure work server. I named it Project Leech at first, then renamed it to Household OPEX in case they ever saw it over my shoulder. I logged everything. November 4th, Uber Eats order. Carter's friends over, $84. November 7th. Gas for mom's minivan because she forgot her wallet, $65. November 12th. Emergency vet bill for the cat that Carter adopted and then ignored, $350. November 20th. Subscription for Masterclass because Carter wanted to learn screenwriting from Aaron Sorkin, $180. The numbers were staggering. In 8 months, I had spent $19,000 on things that were not my rent and not my own food. $19,000. That was a car. That was half a down payment in a cheaper state. That was my freedom. Bleeding out one swipe at a time. I tried to stop it. I really did. Last month, I sat Deborah down. I had printed out a simplified version of the expenses, just the utilities and the food. I didn't even include the accidental gear purchases. Mom, I said, sliding the paper across the table. We need to talk about the budget. I can't keep covering everything. I am trying to save. Deborah didn't even look at the paper. She looked at me with a mix of pity and disappointment. Kayla, she said, her voice dropping to that soft, suffocating register. Money is just energy. It flows in. It flows out. You are so obsessed with hoarding it. I am not hoarding it, I said. I am earning it, and it is flowing out faster than it flows in. Carter is going through a hard time, she said, pivoting as she always did. He is trying to find his voice. The world is so hard for sensitive men right now. He gets overwhelmed. You are different. She reached out and squeezed my hand. Her palm was warm, but it felt cold. You are strong, Kayla, she said. You have always been the strong one. You can handle the pressure. He can't. If we don't support him, who will? Do you want him to fail? I don't want him to fail, I said. I want him to pay for his own Spotify premium. It's $10, she scoffed, pulling her hand away. God, you sound just like your father. So transactional. We are family, not roommates. You are strong. You can handle it. That was the mantra. That was the permission slip. Because I could handle it, I had to handle it. Because I didn't break down and cry when the Wi-Fi bill came. I was expected to pay it. Because I didn't throw a controller at the wall. I didn't need support. My competence was my punishment, and that is why they moved the desk. It wasn't just about the light. It wasn't just about the podcast. It was because they looked at me and they didn't see a person with feelings or limits. They saw a machine. A machine doesn't mind if you shove it in the basement. A machine doesn't need sunlight. A machine just hums along, processing data and printing money. No matter where you plug it in, they thought I was strong enough to take the insult. They thought I was responsible enough to keep paying the bills from the laundry room because that's just what Kayla does. They mistook my endurance for consent. I rolled over in the bed, the duvet bunching up around my shoulders. The darkness of the room felt heavy, but for the first time in 8 months, my mind was clear. They were right about one thing: I am strong. But they were about to learn the difference between a load-bearing wall and a falling rock. A load-bearing wall holds you up. A falling rock crushes you. I closed my eyes. I didn't need to sleep, but I needed to rest. Tomorrow was going to be expensive for them, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to be the one picking up the tab. The basement did not smell like a home office. It smelled of Tide detergent, damp concrete, and the distinct metallic scent of a furnace that had not been serviced in a decade. I sat at a folding card table that my mother had dug out of the garage storage. It wobbled every time I typed a sentence. The lighting was a singular, flickering fluorescent tube that hummed with the persistence of a dying insect. It cast a sickly green pallor over everything, making my skin look jaundiced on the webcam feed. It was 7:45 in the morning. My meeting with the vice president of operations for a major logistics firm was scheduled for 8 o'clock sharp. I stared at the Wi-Fi signal indicator in the bottom right corner of my laptop screen. It was 1 bar. One single, curved line that blinked in and out of existence like a distress signal. "Come on," I whispered. My voice sounded hollow, bouncing off the cinder block walls. I had run a speed test 10 minutes ago. The download speed was 3 megabits per second. The upload speed was non-existent. I was trying to connect to the corporate VPN to access the risk assessment files I needed to present, but the connection kept timing out. The spinning wheel on my screen was mocking me. Above my head, the floorboards creaked. Heavy footsteps. Carter. Then came the sound. It started as a rhythmic thumping, a bass line that vibrated down through the wooden beams and settled into my teeth. Thump, 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 thump. He was testing his intro music. Again, I reached for my phone and texted Deborah. "Mom, please tell him to turn it down. I have the client meeting in 10 minutes. The bass is shaking the camera. I saw the bubbles appear." She was typing. "He is doing a sound check. Kayla. He needs to set the levels. Just put on your headphones." I typed back, my fingers hitting the glass hard. My headphones do not stop the microphone from picking up the vibration. It sounds like I'm in a nightclub. "Please, he will be done soon. Be patient." I put the phone down. I took a deep breath. I adjusted the stack of old encyclopedias I had placed under my laptop to bring the camera to eye level. I needed to look professional. I needed to look like I was in control of billions of dollars of risk capital, not like a woman hiding in a laundry room next to a pile of dirty towels. At 7:58, the bass stopped. Thank God. I connected to the Zoom call. The video quality was grainier than usual, pixelated and lagging, but the audio seemed stable. Mr. Henderson appeared on the screen, sitting in a glass-walled office in Manhattan, looking sharp and impatient. "Good morning, Kayla," he said. His voice was crisp. "Let's dive right into the supply chain vulnerabilities in the Southeast region." "Good morning, Mr. Henderson," I said. I forced a smile. "Absolutely. Let me share my screen." I clicked the share button. The little wheel spun and spun. "Just a moment," I said, my stomach tightening. "The connection is a little slow this morning." "We are on a tight schedule. Kayla," he said, checking his watch. Suddenly, the door at the top of the basement stairs opened. "Mom, have you seen the adapter?" Carter's voice boomed down the stairwell, amplified by the acoustics of the enclosed space. I lunged for the mute button, but I was half a second too slow. "Carter." "Shh," Deborah's voice followed, loud and shrill. "Kayla is on the computer." "I just need the adapter," Carter yelled back. "The stream starts in an hour, on my screen." Mr. Henderson frowned. Is everything all right there? It sounds like a domestic dispute. My apologies, I said, my face burning with a heat that had nothing to do with the furnace. I am working from a temporary location today due to some structural repairs in my main office. Right, he said. He didn't believe me. Can we proceed? I finally got the spreadsheet to load. I was 5 minutes into the presentation, explaining a critical failure point in their trucking routes, when the washing machine to my left kicked into its spin cycle. It sounded like a jet engine taking off inside a tin can. The card table began to vibrate. The encyclopedias shifted. I can't hear you, Mr. Henderson said, leaning into his camera. There is a tremendous amount of background noise. I muted myself again. I looked at the washing machine. It was doing the heavy load jeans and towels. It would be like this for 20 minutes. I unmuted. I am so sorry. There seems to be some heavy machinery operating nearby. Kayla, Mr. Henderson said, his voice dropping an octave. We pay North Pine a premium for professionalism. I cannot make decisions on 8-figure contracts when I can't hear the analyst. Let's reschedule this for when you are in a suitable environment. I can finish, I pleaded, dignity abandoning me. I can speak louder. Reschedule, he said firmly. Send me the dates. The screen went black. I sat there in the silence of the basement, accompanied only by the violent thrashing of the washing machine. I had never been dismissed from a client meeting in my life. Never. I closed the laptop. I didn't slam it. I closed it with a gentle, terrifying precision. I needed to sit back. I needed to lean back and close my eyes and count to 10. I reached behind me, expecting to feel the mesh support of my ergonomic chair. My hand met air. I turned around. I had been so focused on the internet and the table setup that I hadn't fully registered what I was sitting on until that moment. It was a metal folding chair. Beige, cold, hard. My chair. The Herman Miller Aeron that I had bought, refurbished for $600 3 years ago. The chair that saved my back during 12-hour shifts was not there. I stood up. I looked around the chaotic storage space of the basement. Old holiday decorations, broken suitcases, my father's old toolbox, no chair. I unplugged my laptop. I put it under my arm. I walked up the wooden stairs, my footsteps silent on the treads. I walked into the kitchen. The sun was streaming in through the sliding glass doors, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. It was a beautiful, cheerful morning upstairs. The contrast made me feel nauseous. Deborah was at the stove, scrambling eggs. Carter was at the kitchen table, unboxing a new sound mixer. The packaging was spread everywhere. How was the meeting? Deborah asked, without turning around. Her tone was light, breezy, as if she hadn't just sabotaged my career. Did you manage with the noise? I told Carter to keep it down. But you know how creative energy is. Where is my chair? I asked. My voice was quiet. It wasn't the voice of a daughter. It was the voice of an auditor finding a discrepancy. Deborah paused with the spatula in midair. Carter didn't look up from his instruction manual. What chair? Deborah asked. My office chair, I said. The black mesh one. The one that was in my office upstairs. It's not in the basement. Oh, Deborah said. She turned around, wiping her hands on her apron. She had that look on her face, the one she used when she broke a plate and hid the pieces in the trash. A mix of guilt and defiance. Where is it? I repeated. Carter finally looked up. He adjusted his beanie. We sold it. The world seemed to tilt on its axis for a second. You sold it, I repeated. The words felt like foreign objects in my mouth. Yeah, last night, Carter said, gesturing to the mixer on the table. I needed the cash for the Rodecaster Pro. This thing is essential for the audio ducking. The guy came and picked the chair up at like 10 p.m. Got $300 for it. Quick sale. $300. It was worth double that. I looked at Deborah. I was waiting for her to scold him. I was waiting for her to say, Oh my God, Carter, you can't sell your sister's furniture. Instead, Deborah shrugged. It's just a chair. Kayla, she said. She turned back to the eggs. You're young. You have a good back. You can sit on anything. Carter has to sit for hours doing his editing. He needs professional equipment to change his life. We have to prioritize. It wasn't yours to sell, I said. It was in the house, Deborah said, as if that explained everything. We are a family. We share resources. When you move on to your big corporate office downtown or wherever, you won't need it. Carter is building something here. I bought it, I said, with my money. And you live under my roof, Deborah snapped, the breeze gone from her voice. She slammed the spatula down on the counter. I don't charge you market rent. Do I think of it as a contribution? God, you are so materialistic. It is just a thing. Your brother is trying to build a future. Downstairs is quieter anyway, Carter mumbled, plugging a cable into his new toy. You don't need a fancy chair to look at spreadsheets. Nobody sees you. My client sees me, I said. Or he did, before he ended the meeting because of the washing machine. Well, that's not my fault, Carter said defensively. I didn't turn the washer on. I looked at them, really looked at them. They weren't evil. That would be easier. They were just aggressively, terminally entitled. They had rewritten the narrative of our lives so thoroughly that in their version, I was the villain for wanting to keep my own property. In their version, stripping me of my tools was a noble sacrifice for Carter's imaginary stardom. I pulled out my phone. I opened my banking app. I opened the spreadsheet I had updated the night before. I scrolled to the bottom. $24,312. That was the total. That was the cost of being Deborah's daughter and Carter's sister for the last 8 months, including the chair. So, I said, the single word cut through the smell of frying eggs. They both looked at me. There was something in my tone that made Deborah stop scraping the pan. It was the absence of emotion. So, I said again, everything I buy, everything I pay for, if it is in this house, it belongs to the family. Is that the rule? Don't be dramatic, Deborah scoffed, but she shifted her weight uneasily. It's not about ownership. It's about helping who needs it most. You have so much. Kayla, Carter has nothing. Why are you so stinging? Yeah, Carter laughed. A short, sharp bark. What are you going to do, evict us? It's Mom's house. He shook his head, looking down at his mixer, smiling that smug, little brother smile. He thought this was another squabble. He thought I would stomp my foot, yell about fairness, and then pay for pizza tonight to apologize for ruining the vibe. He thought I was safe. Okay, I said. Okay, Deborah asked, echoing the night before. She relaxed, her shoulders dropping. She thought she had won again. Good. Now, sit down. The eggs are almost done. And Kayla, can you look at the internet again? It's lagging on my iPad. I'll look at it, I said. I didn't sit down. I turned around and walked out of the kitchen. Where are you going? Carter asked. Toast is ready. Bathroom, I lied. I walked up the stairs. I walked past the empty space where my office used to be. I walked into my bedroom and locked the door. My suitcase was already open on the bed. I didn't need to pack much more. Just the toiletries, the charger, the laptop. I moved with a terrifying efficiency. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I felt light. It was the lightness of a soldier who has finally received the order to retreat from a losing battle. I checked the time. 8:25. The Uber was 6 minutes away. I had booked it while they were talking about the eggs. I put on my coat. I put on my shoes. I took the hard drive. I looked at the room one last time. I looked at the bed I had slept in as a child. The walls I had stared at while dreaming of a life where I mattered. I wasn't leaving them because of the money. I could make more money. I was leaving them because they had looked me in the eye and told me that my comfort, my career, and my property were less important than their whims. They had told me I was fuel, not family. I grabbed the handle of my suitcase. I grabbed my backpack. I didn't write a note. I didn't leave cash on the dresser. I opened the window. It was on the ground floor of the split level, facing the back alley. I didn't want to walk through the kitchen. I didn't want to hear Deborah ask me to fix the Wi-Fi one last time. I dropped the bag out the window into the bushes. I climbed out after it. The morning air was cold and crisp. It filled my lungs like pure oxygen. I walked around the side of the house to the street. The black sedan pulled up to the curb just as I reached the sidewalk. I got in. "Airport?" the driver asked. "No," I said, looking back at the house. The kitchen window was glowing with warm light. They were eating those eggs. They were waiting for me to come back down and fix the router. They were waiting for the goose to lay another golden egg. "Westbridge," I said. 112 Oak Street. The driver nodded and pulled away. I watched the house shrink in the rearview mirror until it was just a small, insignificant dot. Then, I turned around and faced the road ahead. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Carter. "Hey, serious about the internet. I can't stream if it's red." I didn't answer. I reached into my bag, pulled out the SIM card tool I kept in my tech kit, and popped the tray open. I looked at the tiny chip. Then, I opened the window and flicked it onto the highway. Let them stream that. To understand how I was able to walk out of that house at 8:25 in the morning with nothing but a backpack and a cold resolve. You have to understand what happened between midnight and 4 in the morning. I did not make a rash decision. In my line of work, we call that a panic response, and panic responses cost money. I executed a controlled liquidation of assets. The truth is, I had been looking at the apartment in Westbridge, Columbus, for 3 weeks. It was a studio on the 3rd floor of a renovated brick building. It had exposed ductwork, which meant it was drafty, and it faced an alley, which meant it was dark. But it had one feature that the house in the suburbs did not have. The lease was in my name, and my name alone. I had the tab open on my laptop for days, the Apply Now button hovering there like a parachute. I hadn't clicked it because I was afraid. I was afraid Deborah would say I was abandoning her. I was afraid Carter would say I thought I was better than them. I was afraid of the guilt, that heavy, wet blanket they had spent 30 years weaving around me. But after the desk shove, the fear evaporated. It was replaced by a clarity so sharp it felt like ice water in my veins. At 12:15 in the morning, while the house slept, I signed the lease digitally. I watched the processing icon spin, approved. Then came the money. First month's rent, $1,200. Security deposit, $1,200. Broker fee, 1/2 of a month's rent. I initiated the transfer, $3,000 leaving my account in a single click. It was a physical sensation, a punch to the gut. That was my safety net. That was the money I had saved by eating ramen and skipping vacations. But as I watched the balance drop, I realized something. This pain was different. When I paid for Carter's camera lens or Deborah's groceries, the pain was heavy and dull, like being bled slowly. This pain was sharp and clean. It was the pain of cauterizing a wound. It hurt, but it stopped the bleeding. Then, the extraction began. I moved around my room with the silence of a thief. I didn't pack clothes. Clothes are heavy, and clothes can be replaced. I packed the data. I took the physical files from the bottom drawer, my birth certificate, my passport, the title to my car which I had sold last year, but I kept the record and my social security card. I packed my external hard drives, wrapping them in thick wool socks to cushion them. I packed my prescription migraine medication. I packed them into my backpack, distributing the weight so it wouldn't look bulky. Then, I sat back down at my laptop and opened the Project Leech spreadsheet. It was time for the digital heist. I didn't want to scream. I didn't want to break things. I wanted to disappear. I logged into the utility provider's website. The account was in my name. Service transfer request. Effective date. Today. New address. 112 Oak Street, Westbridge. I didn't turn off the lights at the house. That would be petty. I simply removed my billing information and transferred the service responsibilities. The next bill would arrive addressed to resident, and when it went unpaid, the darkness would be their own doing. I went to the streaming services, Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, Spotify Family Plan, manage subscription, cancel, log out of all devices. I imagined Carter waking up the next day, trying to play his morning motivation playlist, and being met with a request for a credit card. It was a small, petty thought, but it nourished me. Then, I went to Amazon. This was the big one. My card was the default payment method. It had been for years because it was easier. I deleted the card. I deleted the backup card. I enabled two-factor authentication, linking it to an authenticator app on my phone, not my phone number, so they couldn't use the forgot password text message to get back in. I was about to close the tab when I saw it. A new email in my promotions folder that I usually ignored. It had come in at 4:30 that afternoon. Confirmation of your payment plan with Affirm. I frowned. I hadn't bought anything on an installment plan. I paid for everything up front. Debt makes me itchy. I opened the email. Thank you for your purchase from Sweetwater Sound. Item Rodecaster Pro 2. Integrated audio production studio. Total financed $700. Monthly payment $58 for 12 months. I clicked the details. The billing address was the house. The name on the loan was Kayla Mitchell. I stopped breathing for a moment. Carter hadn't just used my card to buy the mixer. He had used my social security number, which he must have found in my tax documents downstairs, to open a line of credit in my name. He had signed a legal contract pretending to be me because he knew I wouldn't approve a $700 purchase, but he figured I wouldn't notice $50 a month slipping out of my account. He didn't just steal my money, he stole my identity. I didn't scream. I didn't run downstairs and shake him awake. That would give him a chance to talk, to whine, to say he didn't understand how credit worked. I took a screenshot of the email. I took a screenshot of the loan agreement. I saved them to 3 different cloud servers. This was no longer a family dispute. This was evidence. I looked at the clock. It was 3:45 in the morning. I stood up and walked to the window. The street outside was dead silent, the suburban dream, quiet and peaceful. Inside, the house was rotting. I zipped up my backpack. It contained my life. Everything else in this room, the bed, the dresser, the old posters was just a set piece for a play I was no longer starring in. I unlocked the bedroom door and crept out into the hallway. The floorboards were treacherous, but I knew every squeak. I had learned to walk silently in this house years ago so I wouldn't wake Deborah and be asked to do a chore. I went to the top of the stairs. I could hear Carter snoring from his room, a rhythmic, carefree sound. He was sleeping the sleep of someone who believes the world owes him a living. I went down to the kitchen. I saw the empty space where my chair had been. I walked to the back door. My hand hovered over the deadbolt. I could leave now. I could walk out into the dark, call the Uber, and be gone before they woke up. But then I thought about the chair. I thought about the mixer. I thought about the installment plan. If I left in the night, they would spin a story. They would say I ran away. They would play the victim. They needed to see me. They needed to see that I wasn't running away from them. I was walking past them. I locked the door again. I went back upstairs. I hid the backpack in the back of the closet, behind my winter coats. I laid down on the bed, fully dressed, my shoes still on. I stared at the ceiling and waited for the sun. I waited for the performance to begin. I was ready. The accounts were closed. The lease was signed. The evidence was secured. The heist was already over. They just didn't know they had been robbed of their victim yet. The first morning in the studio apartment was defined not by what was there, but by what was missing. There was no smell of stale bacon grease drifting up from the kitchen. There was no thumping bass line vibrating through the floorboards. There was no passive-aggressive sighing from the hallway. There was only the pale, gray light of an Ohio morning filtering through the large industrial window, illuminating the dust motes dancing over the empty hardwood floor. I sat on the floor with my back against the brick wall. I had stopped at a convenience store on the way in and bought a large black coffee and a bagel. The coffee was bitter, scalding, and cheap. It was the best cup of coffee I'd ever tasted. I took a sip and looked at my phone lying on the floor a few feet away. The screen was black, silent, peaceful, and then the clock struck 7:12 in the morning. It began with a single buzz, a short, sharp vibration against the wood floor, then another, then a long, sustained rattle that indicated a phone call, then a rapid-fire series of short buzzes that sounded like a machine gun. Buzz, 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 rattle. I didn't reach for it. I just watched it dance across the floorboards. propelled by the sheer force of my family's panic. It was a fascinating psychological experiment. I had removed the support beams of their life roughly 8 hours ago, and gravity had finally done its work. I leaned forward and tapped the screen to wake it, but I did not unlock it. I just read the notifications cascading down the lock screen like a waterfall of incompetence. Missed call Mom 3, missed call Carter 5, then came the texts. Carter, 7:12 a.m. Yo, internet is down. Reset the router. Carter, 7:13 a.m. Still red. Did you change the password? Deborah, 7:14 a.m. Kayla. The Wi-Fi isn't working on the iPad. I can't check the weather. Carter, 7:15 a.m. Hello? I have the collab with J-Dog in 2 hours. I need to prep. Fix it. Carter, 7:16 a.m. Bro, are you sleeping? Wake up. I took another bite of my bagel. It was dense and chewy. I chewed slowly, savoring the texture. In the old life, the life that ended last night, I would have been sprinting down the stairs by now. I would have been on the phone with the service provider, apologizing to Carter, resetting the modem, and absorbing their stress as if it were my own. I would have been the frantic technician keeping their reality operational. Here, in Westbridge, I was just a woman eating breakfast. The phone rattled again. Another call from Carter. I let it go to voicemail. A new notification popped up. This one was from the internet service provider, forwarded automatically to my email because my mother still didn't understand how to unlink accounts. Service alert: primary payment method declined. Account ownership transfer pending acceptance. Service suspended. I smiled. A small, cold smile. I hadn't turned off the internet. That would have been malicious. I had simply done exactly what they asked. I had given them the house. I had transferred the utility accounts to the address, removed my credit card, and authorized the transfer of responsibility to the residents. All they had to do was open the email, click accept, and input their own credit card number. But they wouldn't do that. They didn't know how to do that. To them. The internet was like the air. It just existed. They didn't understand that air required a subscription fee of $120 a month. The tone of the messages began to shift. The confusion was curdling into anger. Deborah, 7:25 a.m. I just found the note from the electric company. It says the auto pay is canceled. Kayla, what is going on? Why are you doing this? Carter, 7:28 a.m. WTF, my login for Adobe isn't working. It says subscription expired. I have a project file locked in there. Carter, 7:30 a.m. Pick up the phone. I finished my coffee. I stood up and stretched. My back popped. I felt taller. I walked over to the window and looked down at the alley. A garbage truck was lifting a dumpster. The hydraulic whine was loud, but it was honest noise. It was the sound of work being done, not the sound of energy being sucked away. I decided to listen to the voicemails. I put the phone on speaker and set it on the windowsill. First voicemail. Deborah, 7:18 a.m. Kayla, it's Mom. I don't know what you touched before you went to work, but the house is offline. Carter is freaking out. He's throwing things. You know how he gets when his routine is disrupted. Please call back immediately and walk us through the fix, and pick up some milk on your way home tonight. She still thought I was coming home. She still thought I was at work. Just unreachable. She thought this was a glitch. Second voicemail. Carter, 7:22 a.m. Dude, seriously. You changed the passwords to be funny. I have J-Dog and the crew logging into the server at 9 sharp. If I'm not there, I look like a joke. This is my career. Kayla, stop being a bitch and text me the new code. Third voicemail. Deborah, 7:45 a.m. Her voice was different now, higher. The edges were fraying. Kayla, I went into your room to get the router password from your notebook. You're not there. The closet it looks empty, and your laptop is gone. Call me. Right now. The realization had hit. The lag time between the action and the reaction was exactly 45 minutes. I looked at the time. It was almost 8 o'clock. I had taken the day off from North Pine Risk Solutions. I had told them I was moving. They had been supportive. They sent me a $50 gift card for a home improvement store. My boss treated me better than the people who shared my DNA. I finally typed a response. I didn't send it to the group chat. I sent it to Deborah. I moved out. The utilities are transferred to the house address. You just need to put in your card information to turn them back on. I hit send. The response was immediate. The phone lit up like a flare. Deborah. You moved out without telling us. How could you, Deborah? We are a family. You don't just leave. Deborah. Who is going to pay the arrears? The email says there is a balance due. I ignored that. Of course there was a balance. I had paid up to yesterday. The new cycle started today. Then came the emotional pivot. The classic Deborah maneuver. Deborah. I can't believe you are this selfish. Carter is crying. He is literally on the floor having a panic attack because he can't do his show. You are ruining his life over a chair. Is this about the chair? I laughed out loud. The sound startled me. It bounced off the empty walls. It wasn't about the chair. It was about the fact that she thought it could be about the chair. It was about the fact that she reduced a decade of financial exploitation down to a single piece of furniture. Carter. You owe me for this lost revenue. If I miss this stream, I lose the sponsorship. That's $500. Kayla. You're paying me that. I typed back to Carter. No. Just 2 letters. No explanation. No apology. No. I'm sorry. But, Carter. What do you mean? No. You sabotaged me. Kayla, I didn't sabotage you. I just stopped subsidizing you. If your business model relies on me paying for your internet, your software, and your electricity, then you don't have a business. You have a hobby that I'm tired of funding. It was the most honest thing I had ever said to him. My phone rang again. It was a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated, then answered. Hello. Is this Kayla Mitchell? A robotic voice. This is the Fraud Prevention Department of Chase Bank. We are calling to verify some unusual activity on a card ending in 4492. That wasn't my main card. That was the authorized user card I had given Deborah for groceries only 2 years ago. I had locked it last night via the app. Speaking, I said. We show a declined transaction for $350 at Pro Audio Warehouse attempted at 7:55 a.m. Was this you? I closed my eyes and shook my head. Carter. He must have stolen Mom's wallet the second the internet went down, trying to buy a mobile hotspot or new gear to salvage his stream, thinking her card would still work. No, I said clearly. That was not me. I did not authorize that charge. Thank you. We will keep the card locked and issue a new one to the primary address on file. Actually, I said, please cancel the card entirely and remove that authorized user. Done. Have a nice day. Ms. Mitchell? I hung up. The texts were coming in faster now. A slurry of desperation and venom. Deborah. The card didn't work. Carter needs equipment to stream from the library. Why is the card declined? Deborah Kayla. Pick up, I am your mother, Carter. I'm going to tell everyone what you did. I'm going to post it. I'm going to tell them you abused us and stole our money and left us to rot. I watched the threat roll in. It should have terrified me. The old Kayla would have been terrified of the public shame, of the bad daughter narrative. But the new Kayla looked at the empty apartment, the brick walls, and the sunlight. I had the screenshots. I had the bank statements. I had the emails showing the identity theft regarding the Affirm loan. Let him post. Let him try to tell the world that his sister was a villain because she stopped paying for his Adobe Creative Cloud subscription. I typed one last message to the group chat. I am not coming back. Do not come to my office. Do not look for me. The lease at the house is in Mom's name. The bills are now in your names. Welcome to the real world. Then, I did something I should have done years ago. I went into my settings. Block caller Mom. Block caller Carter. The vibration stopped. The screen went still. The silence that followed was heavy. But it wasn't empty. It was full of possibility. I looked at my watch. It was 8:15. The collab was supposed to start in 45 minutes. Carter was probably currently screaming at a router he didn't know how to configure, holding a credit card that didn't work, in a house where the silence was finally, beautifully, his problem. I finished my bagel. I crumbled the wrapper into a ball and tossed it into the small trash bag I had brought with me. I had a lot to do today. I needed to buy a mattress. I needed to buy a desk. I needed to buy a chair, a new one that no one would ever sell out from under me. But for now, I just sat there. I watched the dust motes dance. I listened to the distant hum of traffic. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the load-bearing wall. I was just a person in a room, and the house I had left behind could stand or fall on its own. I suspected it would fall, and I realized, with a jolt of pure, caffeinated joy, that I didn't care if it did. The silence in my new studio was not empty. It was filled with the hum of my laptop cooling fan and the soft clicking of my trackpad as I conducted the most painful audit of my career. I had spent the last decade analyzing risk for multinational corporations. I looked for hidden liabilities, embezzled funds, and structural weaknesses in billion-dollar ledgers. But as I sat on the floor of my empty apartment at 10 o'clock in the morning, I realized I had been blind to the fraud happening under my own roof. I had blocked their numbers, but I had not blocked my access to the truth. I started digging deeper into the digital footprint of my identity. The Affirm loan for the sound mixer was just the surface debris. I needed to see the foundation. I logged into my email account, the old Yahoo address I had used since high school, the one Deborah had the password to because she claimed she needed it to check family flight itineraries years ago. I had changed the password last night, but I went into the trash folder and the archived folders. That is where I found the leeches. They were small charges, microtransactions that I had missed because they were buried under the noise of my daily life. I found a confirmation email for a subscription to a premium meditation app called Serenity Now. It was $14 a month. The account was registered to Deborah's email address, but the payment method was my phone carrier billing. She had linked the subscription to my mobile number. I checked my phone bill history. There it was. Every month for the last 2 years. $14. Then I found a food delivery membership. $10 a month. Registered to Carter's gaming handle. Then a premium cable add-on for the sports package. $25 a month. I pulled up a fresh spreadsheet. I wasn't tracking one-time purchases anymore. I was tracking the bleed. $14 here, $10 there. $25 there. It added up to nearly $50 a month, siphoned off in amounts small enough that I wouldn't trigger a fraud alert, but consistent enough to cost me $600 a year. I felt a coldness spread through my chest. It wasn't the money, it was the intimacy of the theft. They hadn't just stolen my credit card, they had woven their parasites into the infrastructure of my digital life. But the real blow came when I decided to check my credit report directly. I logged into Experian. I paid the one-time fee for a full report. I scanned the open accounts section. There was the mortgage on the house, Deborah's name. Thank God. There were my student loans paid off. There was the Affirm loan for the mixer opened 4 days ago. $700. And then, my heart stopped. There was another one. Creditor Synchrony Bank. Sweetwater Sound. Date opened February 14th of this year. Original balance. $2,400. Current balance. $1,800. Status, current. February 14th, Valentine's Day. I remembered that day. I remembered it vividly. I had come home from work early to surprise them with dinner. Deborah had been crying in the kitchen because the heating bill was high. I had hugged her. I had transferred $500 to her account to help out. Carter had been in his room, working on a project. On the same day I gave them $500 out of pity. One of them had used my social security number to finance a $2,400 camera lens. I grabbed my phone. My hands were shaking, not with fear, but with the adrenaline of a detective who has just found the murder weapon. I called the customer service number for Synchrony Bank. "Thank you for calling," the automated voice said. "Please enter your social security number." I entered it. "I see you have 2 active accounts," the representative said when she finally came on the line. Her name was Brenda. She sounded tired. "2," I repeated. I need details on the one opened in February. I need to know where the item was shipped. One moment. Ms. Mitchell, for security, can you verify your address? My address is 112 Oak Street, I said, giving my new address. I am sorry. That does not match the address on file for the purchase. Brenda said, try 42 Maple Drive. I said, my mother's house. Yes, that matches. The item, a Sony G Master lens, was shipped to that address on February 16th. It was signed for by, she typed for a moment, a C. Mitchell. Carter. And how was this account authorized? I asked. I did not sign any paperwork. It was an online application, Brenda explained. It was verified via a one-time passcode sent to the mobile number ending in 4492. My mother's phone. The phone I paid for. The phone I was the account holder for. Deborah had received the text code. Deborah had given it to Carter. Or maybe Deborah had applied for it herself. Thank you, Brenda, I said. Please freeze this account immediately for fraud investigation. If you do that, it will impact the credit score associated with. Freeze it, I said, and mark it as identity theft. I hung up. I sat there for a long time. The sun was moving across the floorboards. They hadn't just pushed my desk. They hadn't just sold my chair. They had been structurally dismantling my financial future for months. They were building a studio on the foundation of my credit score. I looked at my phone. It was still on Do Not Disturb, but I could see the missed call counter ticking up. I needed to hear them. I needed to verify the timeline. I unblocked Deborah's number, almost immediately. The phone rang. I answered. I didn't say hello. I just listened. Kayla. Deborah's voice was breathless. She sounded small, fragile. It was the voice she used when she wanted me to feel like a bully. Oh, thank God. I have been so worried. I thought something happened to you. I am fine, I said. Baby, come home, she said. Please, this is ridiculous. We can't fight like this. Your family. I made your favorite lasagna for lunch. Just come home and we can talk about the boundaries you want. It was so tempting. The offer of lasagna, the promise of talk, the illusion that we could just reset the board. I found the loan. Mom, I said. There was a silence on the other end, a sharp intake of breath. What loan? She asked. Her voice was too high. I don't know what you mean. The lens, I said. February 14th, $2,400. You got the text code on your phone. Mom, I just spoke to the bank. Carter told me it was a student discount code, she blurted out. The lie crumbled instantly. He said he just needed a code to get the education pricing. I didn't know it was a credit card. You didn't read the text that said, your credit application is pending, I asked. I don't read every text. Kayla, I am an old woman. I trust my children. Then, the pivot. The mask slipped. Look, we can sort out the money later, she said, her voice hardening. But right now, you need to turn the internet back on. Carter has a contract. If he misses this upload, he gets sued. Do you want your brother to get sued? He isn't going to get sued, I said. He is going to get dropped. There is a difference. You are being vindictive, she snapped. Just log in and pay the bill. We will pay you back next week when my pension comes in. Your pension is $800, I said. The internet arrears are $300. The electric is $200. The Affirm payment is $58. The Synchrony payment is $100. Do the math. Mom? I don't care about the math, she screamed. I care about this family. I hung up. My phone pinged. A text from Carter. Bro, I'm sorry about the chair. And the other stuff. I was going to pay it off when the channel blew up. Serious. Just help me get online today. I'll sign whatever. Just don't kill my dream 'cause you're mad. Help me today. Figure it out later. That was the family motto. That was the trap. Later never came. Later was a mythical place where debts were paid and apologies were real. I opened my laptop. I created a new tab in my spreadsheet. I named it The Timeline of Betrayal. I started cross-referencing. February 14th. Event Carter buys $2,400 lens in my name. Conversation, Deborah tells me. We are broke. Please cover gas. My action transferred $500. March 10th. Event Serenity. Now app renewal, 14. Conversation, Deborah asks why I don't visit more often. Yesterday Event Carter sells my chair $300. Conversation, Carter tells me, downstairs is quieter. It was a map. A map of every time they had looked me in the face and lied while reaching into my pocket. I needed a second opinion. I needed to make sure I wasn't the crazy one. I called Sarah. Sarah was the senior risk analyst at North Pine. She was 40 years old, divorced twice, and had the emotional sentimentality of a shark. She was my mentor. Mitchell, she answered on the first ring. Why are you calling me on your day off? Did the move go south? The move is done, I said. But the audit is just starting. I told her everything. I told her about the chair, the Affirm loan, the lens, the text codes, the microtransactions. Sarah listened without interrupting. When I finished, the silence on the line was heavy. Kayla, Sarah said. Her voice was low. This isn't family drama. This is a RICO case. I know, I said. You have two options, Sarah said. Option A. You go to the police, you file a report for identity theft. Carter goes to jail. Your mom probably gets named as an accomplice. You never speak to them again. I can't send him to jail, I said. He's an idiot, but I can't be the one who puts him in a cage. Okay, Sarah said. I figured you would say that. That leaves option B. You execute a hostile restructuring, but you cannot do this over the phone, and you cannot do this alone. They want me to come over, I said. Do not go into that house alone, Sarah commanded. They will gang up on you. They will cry. They will guilt trip. They will lock the door. You need leverage, and you need a witness, but since you won't bring a cop, you need a paper shield. A paper shield. Draft a contract, Sarah said. A repayment agreement, a confession of debt, and a release of liability. Make them sign it. If they sign, you turn the lights back on for exactly 30 days to give them a transition window. If they don't sign, you walk, and you file the police report. They won't sign, I said. They will, Sarah said, because right now, you are the only bank in town, and they are insolvent. You have the leverage. Kayla, use it, but treat it like a business meeting. No tears, no yelling, just ink. I hung up. I looked at the empty white walls of my studio. Sarah was right. I couldn't just disappear. If I disappeared now, I was leaving loose ends. I was leaving my credit report vulnerable. I was leaving them with the narrative that I had abandoned them. I needed to close the file. I spent the next 2 hours typing. I didn't write a story. I wrote a legal document. I used the templates from my work database. Acknowledgement of debt. Agreement to assume liability. Termination of financial support. I listed every item: the lens, the mixer, the camera, the back rent, the utilities. I added a clause at the bottom. Failure to adhere to this payment schedule will result in the immediate filing of formal police reports regarding the identity theft committed on February 14th and November 20th. It was a plea bargain. I was giving them a chance to plead guilty to me instead of a judge. I printed 2 copies on my portable printer. I put on my blazer. I put on my heels. I didn't dress like a daughter coming over for lasagna. I dressed like an auditor coming for a site visit. I texted Deborah one last time. I am coming over at 4 o'clock. Have Carter there. We are going to sign some papers. If you are not there, or if you start yelling, I leave, and I go straight to the precinct. I looked at the send button. I wasn't doing this to save them. I wasn't doing this to be a good sister. I was doing this to get my name off their ledger. I pressed send. The game was over. It was time to tally the score. I did not go to the house. Going to the house would have been a tactical error. The house was their territory. It was a place of soft cushions, sentimental magnets on the fridge, and the overpowering smell of the potpourri Deborah used to mask the scent of decaying maintenance. In the house, I was a daughter. in a neutral location. I was a counterparty. I texted Deborah. I will meet you at the Daily Grind on 4th Street. 4 o'clock. Be on time. She replied instantly. Okay. Honey, can't wait to see you. I'll bring your mail. She thought this was a reconciliation. She thought we were going to share a scone, cry a little, and then I would hand over my credit card information so Carter could upload his video. She thought the glitch was over. I arrived at 3:30. I chose a table in the back corner, far enough from the espresso machine to hear clearly, but visible enough to the rest of the patrons that they wouldn't dare cause a scene. I ordered a black coffee. I opened my laptop. I placed the 2 printed copies of the repayment agreement on the table. Face down, I placed the spreadsheet, printed on 11 by 17 paper for maximum visibility. Next to it, I waited. At 4 o'clock sharp, the door chimed. They walked in. Deborah looked tired, her makeup slightly smeared, wearing a cardigan that was too big for her. She was performing the role of the worried mother for an audience of none. Carter trailed behind her. He was wearing sunglasses indoors and his hoodie pulled up. He looked like a celebrity trying to avoid paparazzi. Despite being a 26-year-old man whose biggest audience was a room full of bots, they spotted me. Deborah's face lit up with a desperate, frantic hope. She rushed over, arms open. "Kayla!" she exclaimed, loud enough for the barista to look up. "Oh, thank God. You look tired. Are you eating?" I did not stand up. I did not hug her. I pointed to the chair opposite me. "Sit down, Mom." Deborah froze. The hug died in midair. She looked at my face, and for the first time, she seemed to register that the daughter who used to apologize for taking up space was not at this table. She sat. Carter slumped into the chair next to her, crossing his arms and staring at the ceiling. He tapped his foot against the table leg. Thump, thump, thump. "Carter," I said. "Stop tapping." He stopped. He looked at me over the rim of his sunglasses. "You're in a mood." "I am not in a mood," I said. "I am in a meeting." "Kayla, please," Deborah said. Reaching across the table to touch my hand, I moved my hand to the trackpad of my laptop. "Let's not be like this. Just tell us you're coming home. The house feels empty. The cat misses you." "The cat ignores me unless I am opening a can of tuna," I said, "and I am not coming home. I signed a lease in Westbridge. I live there now." Deborah gasped. It was a theatrical, hand-to-the-chest gasp. "You signed a lease without asking me. But what about the family? We need you there. It's not safe for a girl to live alone in the city." "I am 33 years old," I said. "And I am safer there than I am in a house where my identity is being stolen." "Stolen?" Carter scoffed. "God, you are so dramatic. I used a code. I was going to pay it back." "Let's talk about that," I said. I flipped over the spreadsheet. It was a dense grid of numbers, dates, and vendors. I had color-coded it, red for unauthorized purchases, yellow for coerced shared expenses, blue for the loans taken out in my name. "What is this?" Deborah asked, staring at the paper as if it were written in hieroglyphics. "This is the cost of doing business with you," I said. I ran my finger down the first column. "Let's start with the basics, the groceries. You claim we split them, but looking at the receipts from the last 8 months, I paid for 85% of all food brought into the house. That is $3,400. "I buy milk," Deborah protested. "You buy milk," I agreed. "And bread. I buy the meat, the vegetables, the detergent, the paper towels, and the takeout orders. Carter places at midnight." I moved my finger down. "Utilities. You said we would split them based on usage. Since I moved in, the electric bill tripled. Carter runs a server rack and studio lights, 12 hours a day. I paid the entire bill. Every month. That is $1,600 in excess usage." "He is working," Deborah hissed, leaning in. "He is building a career. He is playing video games and recording intro tracks that nobody listens to," I said. "And he is doing it on my dime." I moved to the red section. "And here we have the fraud, the camera lens, $2,400, the Affirm loan for the mixer, $700, the subscription services, the Uber Eats charges on my old card. I looked up. I locked eyes with Deborah. The total, I said, my voice steady and low, is $29,412 in 8 months. The number hung in the air between us, heavier than the smell of roasted coffee. Deborah stared at the paper. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. She blinked. She looked at the number again. She looked at the breakdown. She saw the dates. She saw the undeniable mathematical proof of her own negligence. "No," she whispered. "That can't be right. We borrow a little here and there. We help each other." "I helped you," I corrected. "You took from me. There is a difference." Carter finally took off his sunglasses. He looked at the spreadsheet, but he didn't look ashamed. He looked annoyed. He looked like a child who had been told he couldn't have dessert. "So what?" Carter spat. "You have a good job. You make, 6 figures? This is pennies to you. Why are you counting pennies? It's pathetic." "It is not pennies," I said. "It is a down payment on a house. It is my retirement fund. It is my life." I reached into my bag and pulled out the contract. I slid 1 copy to Deborah and 1 copy to Carter. "This is not a suggestion," I said. "This is a settlement offer." Deborah picked up the paper. Her hands were shaking. "What is this?" "It is a repayment agreement," I said, "and a separation of assets." I listed the terms, ticking them off on my fingers. 1. I have already canceled all auto payments linked to my accounts. You have 48 hours to put the utilities in your own names. If the lights go out, that is on you. 2. You, Carter, will acknowledge the debt of $3,100 for the equipment you bought in my name. You will make monthly payments of $200 starting next month. If you miss a payment, I file a police report for identity theft. 3. No one in that house is authorized to use my name, my social security number, or my credit profile for anything, ever again. I have put a freeze on my credit at all 3 bureaus. If you try to open a loan, it will be flagged, and I will prosecute. 4. Carter gets a job. Carter slammed his hand on the table. The coffee cups rattled. A woman at the next table turned around and glared. "A job," Carter shouted. "I have a job. I am a creator. You don't get it, do you? You're just a corporate drone. You think the only way to make money is to sit in a cubicle and rot. I am building a brand. Your brand has generated $0 in revenue and $3,000 in debt," I said calmly. "That is not a business. That is a liability. You need a W-2 income. Carter, Starbucks is hiring. The warehouse down on 5th is hiring. You need to pay Mom rent, and you need to pay me back. You can't make me work at a warehouse." Carter sneered. "I have back issues. I have anxiety." "Then get a desk job," I said. "I don't care, but the Bank of Kayla is closed." Carter looked at Deborah. "Mom, are you hearing this? She's trying to ruin me. She's trying to humiliate us." Deborah looked up from the contract. Her eyes were wet. She looked small. She looked old. "Kayla," she said, her voice trembling, "this is so cold. You're treating us like strangers, like enemies. I changed your diapers. I held you when you were sick. I worked double shifts to buy you prom dresses. And now you hand me a bill. You want me to sign a contract to be your mother?" It was the masterstroke, the "I gave you life" card. It was designed to bypass logic and strike directly at the guilt center of the brain. I felt the familiar twinge in my chest, the urge to say, "Okay, Mom, don't cry. I'll fix it. Just this once." But then I looked at the spreadsheet. I looked at the line item for February 14th, the day I gave her money while they stole my credit. I stiffened. "I am not asking you to sign a contract to be my mother," I said. "I am asking you to sign a contract to stop being my dependent." I tapped the paper. "You raised me to be responsible, Mom. You told me that hard work pays off. You told me to stand on my own 2 feet. Well, I am doing it. I am standing. Why are you mad that I am doing exactly what you taught me?" "But family," she began. "Family doesn't steal," I said. Family doesn't shove their daughter into a basement next to a washing machine so their son can play pretend. Family respects each other. I leaned forward. Look at the number. Mom, $29,000. If a stranger took that from you, you would call the police. Why is it okay because you share my last name? Deborah looked at the number again. She traced the digits with her finger. I didn't know, she whispered. I really didn't know it was that much. Because you didn't want to know, I said. Because it was easier to let me handle it. But I am done handling it. I took a pen out of my bag. I clicked it. I set it down on top of the contract. Sign it, I said. If you sign it, I will pay the internet bill for this month to give you time to switch it over. I will not file the police report for the loans. We can keep this civil. And if we don't, Carter challenged, what are you gonna do? Sue your own mom. I won't have to, I said, looking at him. The creditors will do it for me. I'll just report the fraud. The bank goes after you. Carter, not me. And federal fraud charges look really bad on an influencer's resume. Carter went pale. He knew I was right. He knew enough about the world to know that banks didn't care about his creative process. Deborah picked up the pen. Her hand was shaking so badly she could barely hold it. I just wanted us to be close, she sobbed softly. I just wanted everyone to be happy. We can be close, I said, but we can't be financially entangled. Sign the paper, Mom. She signed. It was a messy scrawl, but it was there. She pushed the paper back to me. She didn't look up. She was weeping silently, the tears dripping onto the table. Carter, I said. Your turn. Carter stared at the paper. He stared at me. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping in his cheek. He hated me. In that moment, he truly hated me. I had stripped away his safety net. I had exposed him as a fraud in front of his mother. I had forced him to look at the reality of his own mediocrity. He grabbed the pen. He signed his name with a violent, jagged stroke that tore through the paper slightly. Happy, he spat. You got your blood money. It's my money, I said. There is no blood on it unless you put it there. I took the contracts. I checked the signatures. I put them in my bag. Okay, I said. I will pay the internet bill for this month tonight. You have 30 days to get the utilities in your name. Good luck. I stood up. Deborah looked up at me. Her eyes were red, rimmed with a mix of sorrow and a new, unfamiliar fear. She was looking at me not as her child, but as a woman she didn't quite recognize. Are you coming for Christmas? She asked. A reflex question. A habit. I don't know, I said. Let's see how the payments go. I turned to leave. As I walked away, I didn't look back, but I heard Carter's voice. It wasn't loud, but it was clear. He wasn't talking to Deborah. He was muttering to himself, or maybe to the air. She thinks she's safe, he mumbled. She thinks a piece of paper stops me. I paused for a fraction of a second. A chill ran down my spine, sharper than the winter wind outside. He hadn't signed that paper because he intended to pay. He signed it to get me to leave. He signed it to buy time. I walked out of the coffee shop and into the cool afternoon air. I clutched my bag to my side. I had the contract. I had the moral high ground. But as I hailed a cab, I realized that the hardest part wasn't the negotiation. The hardest part was knowing that my brother wasn't defeated. He was just cornered, and rats are most dangerous when they are cornered. I pulled out my phone and called Sarah. Did they sign? She asked. They signed, I said. Good. Do you feel better? No, I said, watching the streetlights flicker on. I feel like I just declared war. You didn't declare it, Mitchell, Sarah said. You just finally decided to fight back. I got into the cab. Take me to 112 Oak Street, I told the driver. And take the long way. I need to make sure I'm not being followed. It sounded paranoid, but after seeing the look in Carter's eyes, I knew it was just risk management. I thought the ink on the contract was a wall. I thought the signatures, jagged and reluctant as they were, constituted a treaty. I was naive. In my line of work, I should have known better. A signature is only as good as the character of the person holding the pen, and my family's character was made of wet cardboard. It was 11:45 at night. I was lying on a mattress on the floor of my new studio. I didn't have a bed frame yet. I had spent the evening feeling a strange, hollow sort of victory. I had won the battle at the coffee shop, but the war was far from over. My phone was charging on the floor next to my head. I had finally turned off Do Not Disturb, thinking the drama was done for the day. Then, the notification sound for my work email chimed. It wasn't the standard new email ping. It was the frantic, high-pitched, triple tone that North Pine Risk Solutions reserved for Priority 1 security events. I grabbed the phone. The screen was blinding in the dark room. Security alert. North Pine Identity Shield. Unauthorized access attempt detected. User K. Mitchell ID 8894. Device MacBook Pro 2018. Unrecognized IP. Location residential IP, Ohio. My blood ran cold. I knew that device. It was my old work laptop. A machine I had retired 3 years ago when the screen hinge broke. I had wiped it, or I thought I had, and shoved it into the back of the closet in the guest room, intending to recycle it eventually. Carter. He had gone into the closet. He had dug through the boxes I left behind. He had found the old machine, found a power cord, and managed to boot it up. And now, he was trying to log in. I sat up, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. This wasn't just him looking for a file. If that laptop still had cached credentials, or if he guessed my password, which was a variation of a phrase we used as kids, he could breach the North Pine server. If he touched a single client file, I wouldn't just be fired. I would be blacklisted from the industry. I could face federal charges for negligence. He was playing with a loaded gun, and he had it pointed right at my career. I didn't call Deborah. I didn't call Carter. I called the one number that could save me. North Pine Security Operations. This is Miller, a voice answered on the first ring. This is Kayla Mitchell, Senior Risk Analyst, ID 8894. I said. I was speaking so fast I barely recognized my own voice. I have a Priority 1 breach attempt on a retired device. It is not me. I repeat, it is not me. Initiate a hard lock on my credentials immediately. Verifying voice print, Miller said calmly. Okay, Kayla, I see the attempt. They are trying to bypass the two-factor authentication. They are hitting the resend code button repeatedly. Kill the session, I commanded. Revoke all tokens. Lock the account. Do not let them in. Executing, Miller said. I heard the furious clatter of a keyboard. Okay, account locked. Device flagged as hostile. We are tracing the IP. It looks like a residential address in the suburbs. It is a theft, I said, my voice shaking with rage. The device was stolen from my previous residence. Please log it as a theft, so I am not held liable for the attempt. Logged, Miller said. You're safe, Kayla. But you need to change your master key phrases within the hour, and you need to retrieve that device. I will handle the device, I said. Thank you. I hung up. I was trembling. I felt like I had just sprinted a mile. He had tried to break into my work computer. He had tried to break into the one thing that was solely, purely mine. My phone rang. It was Deborah. I stared at the name. The audacity was breathtaking. I answered. What did you do? She screamed. She wasn't crying this time. She was shrieking. Why is the computer locked? She yelled. Carter was 90% downloaded. He needs that file. He is hacking a federal contractor. Mom, I shouted back, my voice echoing off the brick walls. Do you have any idea what he just did? That is a company asset. If he had gotten in, I would be in prison. Oh, stop it, Deborah scoffed. He wasn't hacking. He remembered you saved his intro music on your cloud drive last year. He just wanted to get his song back. He found the old laptop in the closet and thought you wouldn't mind. He's crying. Kayla, he is punching the wall because you locked him out. He is punching the wall. I laughed, a harsh, jagged sound. He should be thanking God I didn't send a SWAT team to the house. That laptop is property of North Pine. He has no right to touch it. It was in my house. Deborah yelled. "Everything in this house is for the family. You are so selfish, hoarding your files while your brother's dreams die. Just give him the password. He just needs the MP3 file." "No," I said. "He can record a new one, or he can buy one, but he is never touching my equipment again." "You are destroying this family," she screamed. "No, Mom," I said, deadly quiet. "You are—" I hung up. I sat there in the dark, waiting for the fallout. I knew it was coming. Carter was a cornered rat, and rats bite. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a notification from Instagram. I had been tagged in a story. I opened the app. There was Carter, looking disheveled, tears in his eyes, recording himself in the dark living room. "I don't usually do this," he said to the camera, his voice breaking. "But I'm at my limit. I have been working so hard on this launch, and tonight, my own flesh and blood, my own sister sabotaged me. She locked me out of the files I created. She stole my equipment. She left me and my mom with nothing. It's crazy how money changes people. Some people make it to the top and forget who carried them there." He didn't tag me directly in the text, but he tagged my handle in the corner, small enough to be subtle, but clear enough for our mutuals to see. Then the comments started rolling in. Cousin Becky. "Oh my God. Carter. Stay strong. That is awful. Aunt Sharon. I always knew she was cold. Praying for you. Uncle Mike disgraceful. Family comes first. Random follower. Wow. Toxic sister alert. Keep grinding. King." I watched the notifications stack up. They were rewriting history in real time. They were painting me as the villain, the rich corporate witch who stomped on her poor, artistic brother. I felt a surge of nausea. For years, I had protected their reputation. I hadn't told anyone that I paid the bills. I hadn't told anyone about the debts. I let them play the successful family charade because I didn't want to embarrass them. And this was my reward. Public humiliation. "Okay," I whispered to the empty room. "You want to go public? Let's go public." I opened my laptop. I opened the spreadsheet. The one with the red columns. The one with the fraud. The one with the $29,000. I took a screenshot. I used the editing tool to black out the account numbers and sensitive personal data. But I left the dates. I left the vendors. I left the amounts. And I left the names Carter and Deborah next to the charges. A firm loan. Fraudulent. Carter. $700. Sony Lens identity theft. Carter. $2,400. Utilities unpaid. Deborah. $1,600. Total theft. $29,412. I opened Instagram. I selected the image. I didn't write a long defense. I didn't write a paragraph about how much I loved them. I typed one sentence: "I've been silent for years to protect their dignity, but I will not be silent while they attack my integrity." I hit post. I watched the progress bar. Posted. Then, I turned off the phone. I didn't want to see the explosion. I knew it would happen. The silence would shatter. I went to the window and looked out at the city lights. I felt sick, but I also felt clean. It was done. The secret was out. I went to the bathroom to wash my face. When I came back, 5 minutes later, I couldn't resist. I picked up the phone. The notifications had changed. Carter's story had been deleted. My post had 40 likes, and the comments were different. Cousin Becky. "Wait, is this real, Uncle Mike? $2,000 for a lens. Carter told us he won that in a contest. Friend from high school." "I'm so sorry. Kayla, I had no idea." But there was one message that stopped my breath. It wasn't a comment. It was a direct message. It was from my great-aunt Linda, Deborah's older sister. We hadn't spoken in years. She lived in Arizona and was largely estranged from the family. I had always been told she was difficult and greedy. I opened the message. "Linda, I saw your post. You are brave. Kayla, braver than I was." 3 little dots appeared. She was typing. "Linda, your mother did the exact same thing to me in 1995. She used my name to buy a car when her credit was shot. She told everyone I gave it to her as a gift. When I tried to get the money back, she turned the whole family against me. Said I was jealous of her happiness. I paid that debt for 5 years until I was dry. I haven't spoken to her since. I stared at the screen. The text blurred as my eyes filled with tears. It wasn't just me. I wasn't the first victim. I was just the latest host. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't Carter being creative. This was a systemic, generational pathology. Deborah had learned it, perfected it, and taught it to Carter. They were parasites who believed they were entitled to the blood they drank. If I hadn't left, if I hadn't posted that spreadsheet, I would have been Linda. I would have been the bitter aunt in Arizona, paying off a ghost car for a sister who hated me. A cold, hard resolve settled in my stomach. I had thought about letting the contract slide. I had thought about maybe, just maybe, paying the internet one more month if they begged nicely. But now I knew that mercy was just permission. I looked at the laptop sitting on the floor. I looked at the account-locked email from North Pine. I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to salt the earth. I replied to Aunt Linda. Thank you for telling me. It stops with me. I put the phone down. Tomorrow. I wasn't just going to ignore them. I was going to finalize the separation in a way that no amount of crying or Instagram stories could undo. I was going to file the police report. Not for the money, not for revenge, but because if I didn't, Carter would do this to his girlfriend, or his future wife, or his own children. I lay down on the mattress. The room was dark. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of the dark. I was afraid of what I would have become if I had stayed in the light of their approval. I closed my eyes. The bridge was burned. Now, I had to make sure they couldn't swim across the river. The knock on my door came at 6:15 in the evening. It wasn't the heavy, authoritative pound of a landlord or a delivery driver. It was a rhythmic, hesitant tapping. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap. I froze. I was sitting on the floor, assembling a cheap particle board desk I had bought that afternoon. My hands were covered in dust, and a screwdriver was clenched in my fist. I hadn't given them my unit number. I had given them the address of the building for the contract, but there were 40 units in this converted warehouse. I walked to the door. I didn't look through the peephole. I knew who it was. The rhythm of the knock was the same rhythm I had heard on my bedroom door for 30 years whenever she wanted a favor. I opened the door. Deborah stood there. She was wearing her church coat, the nice wool one she saved for occasions when she wanted to look respectable. She was holding a large, insulated cooler bag. Her hair was perfectly coiffed, but her eyes were darting around the hallway, scanning the peeling paint and the exposed pipes with a look of undisguised horror. "Kayla," she breathed out. She looked at me like I was a refugee she had found in a war zone. "Oh, my poor baby." She stepped forward, assuming she would be let in. I didn't move. I stood in the doorway, blocking the view of my sanctuary. "How did you find the unit number?" I asked. "I called the management company," she said, brushing past the question as if it were a minor detail. "I told them I was your mother and I had a medical emergency delivery for you. They were very sweet." She had social engineered my landlord. Of course she had. "I brought food," she said, lifting the bag. "I made the pot roast. I know it's your favorite, and I brought some of those cookies Carter likes, that you like." She caught herself. The slip was tiny, but it was there. She had made Carter's favorite cookies and brought me the leftovers. I looked at the bag. My stomach rumbled. I hadn't eaten a real meal in 2 days. The smell of slow-cooked beef and rosemary was wafting out of the zipper, triggering a primal response. It smelled like safety. It smelled like home. "Come in," I said. It was a mistake. I knew it was a mistake the moment the words left my mouth. But she was my mother, and she was standing in a cold hallway with a pot roast. She walked in. She surveyed the studio. It was sparse. Just the mattress on the floor, the half-assembled desk, and a few boxes. The industrial windows looked out onto a brick wall. "Oh, Kayla," she whispered, clutching the bag to her chest. "You can't live like this. It's so cold. It looks like a prison cell." "It's mine," I said, "and it's quiet." "But it's not a home," she said. She set the bag down on my unfinished desk. She started unpacking Tupperware containers with a frantic energy. Look, I know we had a disagreement. I know things got heated at the coffee shop. But this is extreme. You running away like a teenager. It's not you. She opened the container. The steam rose up. She grabbed a plastic fork she had brought and held it out to me. Eat, she commanded gently. You look pale. I took the fork. I took a bite. It was delicious. It tasted exactly like every Sunday night of my childhood. I missed you, she said softly, watching me eat. The house is so quiet without you. I woke up this morning and I went to knock on your door to ask if you wanted tea, and you weren't there. It broke my heart. Kayla, I felt the wall around my heart begin to crack. Just a hairline fracture. This was the mother I wanted, the one who cared if I was pale, the one who brought food, the one who missed me. I miss the house too. Sometimes, I admitted. It was the truth. I missed the idea of the house. Then come back, she said. She stepped closer, placing a hand on my arm. Her grip was warm. Just for a little while, just until you find a better place than this warehouse. You can have your room back. I'll make Carter move his things out of the hallway. We can reset. I signed a lease. Mom, I said. I can't just leave. We can break a lease, she said quickly. We can say it's a family emergency. You need to be home. Kayla, especially right now. Her eyes shifted. She looked at my laptop, which was sitting closed on the floor. Why right now? I asked. Well, she said, her voice trying to remain casual, but I felt her pulse quicken through her hand on my arm. With all this mess, the accounts, the internet, the bank calls, it's just so much easier if you are there to handle the paperwork. You know how I get with the passwords. And Carter, he needs you to sign off on that security thing so he can get his file back. If you're at the house, you can just log in and fix it. The crack in my heart sealed shut instantly. It sealed with a snap that was almost audible. She didn't miss me. She missed the IT department. She didn't miss her daughter. She missed the fix-it girl who made the scary red lights on the modem turn green. She wanted me back in the house because proximity made exploitation efficient. I put the fork down. The pot roast suddenly tasted like ash. That's why you're here, I said. You want me to unlock the laptop? Deborah recoiled, her hand dropping from my arm. No, I mean, yes, that needs to happen. But I am here because I love you. You love me because I am useful, I said. If I couldn't fix the internet or pay the bills, would you have driven across town with a pot roast? How can you ask that? She cried, her face twisting into that familiar mask of victimhood. I am your mother. Then tell me about the Affirm loan, I said. I watched her face carefully. I wanted to see the truth. The what? She blinked. The loan for the mixer, I said. And the lens, the one opened on Valentine's Day. The day I gave you $500 for gas. You knew? Mom, you got the text message verification code. I know you did. The bank confirmed it. Deborah's eyes shifted to the left, a micro-expression of panic. I didn't know it was a loan, she stammered. Carter said it was a verification for a contest. He said he won the lens, and they just needed to verify an adult lived at the address. I gave him the code because I was happy for him. You gave him my social security number. I asked, because they need that for the loan application. He knows where the papers are, she yelled, defensive now. He's your brother. He wouldn't hurt you. He borrows things. He was going to pay it back when he got big. He stole my identity, Mom, I said. And you held the flashlight while he did it. My phone rang. It was lying on the floor. The screen lit up with Deborah's face. She was calling me no. She was standing right in front of me. Then I realized it was Carter calling her phone, which was in her pocket. She pulled it out. It's him. Answer it, I said. Put it on speaker. She hesitated, then tapped the speaker button. Mom, Carter's voice filled the empty studio. Did you find her? Is she there? I'm here, Carter, I said. There was a pause, a silence that stretched for 3 seconds. Okay, good, Carter said. His tone wasn't apologetic. It was the tone of someone negotiating a hostage release. Look, Kayla, I saw the post. You made your point. You embarrassed me in front of the whole internet. Are you happy? I am not happy, I said. I am accurate. Whatever, Carter snapped. Here is the deal. I will pay the $200 a month. I will sign your stupid contract. But you have to unlock the North Pine account first. And you have to turn the internet back on at the house tonight. I have a makeup stream scheduled for 8 o'clock. If I miss this one, I'm done. So, fix it, and I'll pay. You want me to fix it before you start paying? I asked. Yeah, Carter said. As a show of good faith. You destroyed my reputation. You owe me a restart. I looked at Deborah. She was nodding along, as if this was a reasonable compromise, as if asking the victim to pay reparations to the thief was standard family policy. He's willing to pay. Kayla, Deborah whispered. He's trying. I looked at the two of them, one present in flesh, one present in voice. They were a two-headed monster of entitlement. They didn't want a sister. They didn't want a daughter. They wanted a resource. They wanted the creature who lived in the computer and spat out money. No, I said. What? Carter asked. No, I repeated. I am not unlocking the account. I am not turning on the internet. And I am not accepting your deal. You have to, Carter shouted. Mom, tell her. Kayla, please, Deborah begged. Don't be stubborn. I walked over to my bag. I pulled out a folder. I had prepared this earlier, after the call with Aunt Linda. It was the nuclear option. I pulled out a document. It wasn't a contract this time. It was a draft of a police report. Identity theft affidavit, Federal Trade Commission Form 14039. I held it up. This is going to be filed tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, I said. Deborah's eyes went wide. What is that? This is a formal report of identity theft regarding the Affirm loan and the Synchrony credit line. I said, once I file this, the police will open a case. They will subpoena the IP addresses. They will subpoena the phone records. And since you, Mom, provided the verification code, you will be named as an accessory to fraud. You would send me to jail, Deborah whispered. She looked like she had been slapped. I don't want to, I said. But you are leaving me no choice. You are trying to drag me back into the hole. I spent 33 years climbing out of that hole, and I am not going back down. You can't do this, Carter yelled from the phone. We are family. Then start acting like it, I screamed. My voice broke. The composure I had held onto for days finally shattered. Family doesn't steal $29,000. Family doesn't gaslight me about a chair. Family doesn't make me live in a laundry room. You don't want me. You want my credit score. The silence that followed was absolute. Deborah stared at me, her mouth agape. She had never heard me raise my voice. Not once. I was the quiet one. I was the steady one. I took a breath. I lowered the paper. Here is the real deal, I said. The final deal? I looked at the phone. Carter, you are going to transfer the utilities into your name tonight. You, not Mom, you are going to go online, use your own debit card, and pay the deposit. If you don't have the money, you will sell the mixer. I can't sell the mixer, I need it. Then you don't have internet, I said. That is how the world works. I looked at Deborah. And you? Mom, you are going to leave. You are going to take your pot roast, and you are going to go home, and you are going to explain to your son that if I see one more unauthorized login attempt, or if I receive one more bill that isn't mine, I am walking this paper into the precinct, and I will call Aunt Linda to testify as a character witness about your history of financial abuse. Deborah flinched at Linda's name. That was the arrow that hit the mark. She knew I knew. You spoke to Linda, she whispered. We had a long talk, I said. She sends her regards. Deborah looked at the floor. The fight drained out of her. She looked old, defeated, and incredibly small. You are destroying us, she said. Her voice was flat. You are tearing this family apart over money. I am not destroying the family, I said. I am saving the rest of myself. There is a difference. Fine, Deborah said. She grabbed the cooler bag. She didn't offer to leave the food. She zipped it up with a sharp, angry motion. If you want to be alone, be alone. But don't come crying to us when you realize that money doesn't hug you back. Money doesn't stab me in the back either, I said. She turned and walked out. She didn't slam the door. She left it open. A final act of disrespect. I walked over and closed it. I locked the deadbolt. I locked the chain. I slid down against the door until I hit the floor. My hands were shaking. I felt nauseous. I looked at the unfinished desk. I looked at the empty room. I had won. They were gone. I had drawn the line in the sand, and I had defended it. But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like an amputation. I had cut off a limb to save the body, but the phantom pain was already setting in. I sat there for an hour, just breathing. Then, my phone buzzed. I thought it was an apology. I thought maybe, just maybe, the shock had worked. I picked it up. It was an automated email from the United States Postal Service. Change of address confirmation request. We received a request to forward mail from Kayla Mitchell, 112 Oak Street, Unit 4B, to Kayla Mitchell, 42 Maple Drive. Request initiated at 5:30 p.m. I stared at the screen. 5:30? That was 45 minutes before Deborah knocked on my door. She hadn't just come to bring food. She had stopped at the post office or gone online before coming here. She had tried to forward my mail back to her house. She wanted to intercept my bank statements. She wanted to intercept the new credit cards. She wanted to capture my correspondence so I would be forced to come back to the house to get my own mail. She had tried to put a leash on me before she even walked through the door to say she missed me. The nausea vanished. The tears stopped. The phantom pain disappeared. I felt a cold, crystalline clarity. They weren't just messy, they were malicious. They were actively, strategically trying to trap me. I opened the email. I clicked the button that said, "I did not authorize this request. Request canceled. Fraud alert. Added to address." I stood up. I walked over to the desk. I picked up the screwdriver. I finished assembling the leg. I wasn't sad anymore. You can't grieve for people who are trying to hunt you. You can only survive them, and I was going to survive. The meeting did not take place at the kitchen table. The kitchen table was where they had trained me to be compliant. It was where I had eaten guilt for breakfast and obligation for dinner. I was done with that table. Instead, I booked the small conference room at the Community Financial Mediation Center on 3rd Street. It was a neutral ground. Beige walls, a circular table that prevented anyone from taking the head seat, and a ticking clock that reminded everyone that time was billable. I arrived 20 minutes early. I set up my station with the precision of a surgeon preparing for an operation. To my left, the evidence file, the screenshots of the text codes, the Affirm loan documents, the history of the unauthorized credit card attempts, and the email from the post office regarding the mail forwarding fraud. To my right, the solution file, the transfer of liability forms, the utility changeover documents, and the separation agreement. In the center, I placed a single, black pen. At 10 o'clock, the door opened. Deborah walked in first. She looked smaller than she had 2 days ago at my apartment. She wasn't wearing her church coat. She was wearing a gray sweatshirt and jeans. She looked tired, stripped of the pretense that she was the matriarch in control. She didn't look at me. She looked at the floor. Carter followed her. He was vibrating with a restless, angry energy. He wore a headset around his neck, as if to signal that being here was interrupting something critically important. He pulled out a chair and slumped into it, spinning it slightly side to side. "This is stupid," Carter muttered, looking at the ceiling. "We could have done this over FaceTime." "We tried doing this over the phone," I said, my voice even and cool. "And you tried to hack my work computer, so now we do it in person, with witnesses." I gestured to the glass partition where a mediator sat in the next room, visible, but not intrusive. "Let's get this over with," Deborah said, her voice thin. "You made your point. Kayla, you embarrassed us. You moved out. What more do you want, blood?" "I want severance," I said. I opened the laptop. I didn't turn it toward them. I kept it facing me. I didn't need to show them the numbers anymore. I knew they knew. I have filed the preliminary fraud report regarding the Affirm loan, I stated. Deborah flinched. Carter stopped spinning. I haven't submitted it to the police yet, I continued. It is sitting in the draft folder of the Federal Trade Commission's reporting portal. I have also drafted a report regarding the attempt to forward my mail without authorization. That is a federal crime, Mom. Postal fraud. Deborah closed her eyes. I just wanted your bills to come to the house so we could sort them. You wanted to intercept my new credit cards, I corrected. Let's not lie in this room. This room is for truth. I placed my hand on the evidence stack. But we aren't here to talk about the $29,000 you stole. I have already accepted that money is gone. I am writing it off as a bad investment, Carter scoffed. Must be nice to just write off 30 grand. It isn't nice, I said, looking at him. It is devastating, but I can earn it back. What I am here to talk about is the house. I pulled a document from the bottom of my stack. This was the twist. This was the piece of paper that Carter didn't know existed, and that Deborah had conveniently forgotten. Do you recognize this, Mom? I asked, sliding the paper across the table. It was a loan modification agreement from 18 months ago. Deborah stared at it. She paled. What is that? Carter asked, leaning forward. 2 years ago, I said, keeping my eyes on Deborah. Mom told me the roof was leaking and the foundation needed shoring up. She couldn't qualify for the refinancing on her own because her credit score was 540, so she asked me to co-sign. She said it was just a formality. She said she would make the payments. I looked at Carter. I signed it. I put my name on the deed and the mortgage to save the house you are currently living in, which means, Carter, if Mom defaults on the mortgage, the bank doesn't just take the house. They come after me. They garnish my wages. They destroy my security clearance. Carter looked at Deborah. He looked genuinely shocked. You put her on the deed. I thought you said the house was ours. It was for the family, Deborah whispered. And here is the reality, I said, opening the spreadsheet on my screen. I checked the mortgage status this morning. You are 2 months behind. Mom, you haven't paid the mortgage since I moved in and started buying the groceries. You used the grocery money I saved you to buy what I don't even know. I was catching up on the credit cards. Deborah defended herself weakly. You are 60 days away from foreclosure, I said. And because I'm on the loan, you are 60 days away from taking me down with you. The room went silent. The air conditioner hummed, a low mechanical drone that sounded like a countdown. This was the leverage. It wasn't about the internet bill. It was about the fact that they were holding a grenade, and I was handcuffed to the pin. So, I said, here are your options. There are only 2. I slid the first document across the table. Option A, we sell the house, immediately. We put it on the market next week. We take the equity, pay off the mortgage, pay off the debts, and you and Carter find an apartment you can actually afford. I walk away with my credit intact. No! Carter slammed his hand on the table. You can't sell the house. My studio is there. My whole setup. I grew up there. Then you have option B, I said. I slid the second document across. It was a thick packet. Refinancing and removal of liability. You find a way to refinance the loan in your name only, removing me completely, I said. And you, Carter, you get a job, a real job with a W-2 form. Because Mom can't qualify for a refinance on her pension alone, you have to become the co-borrower. You have to put your name on the line. Carter looked at the paper as if it were radioactive. Me, I have bad credit. I have student loans. Then you better fix it, I said. Because if you don't remove me from this loan within 90 days, I am forcing a partition sale. I have already spoken to a real estate attorney. As a co-owner, I have the right to force the sale of the property to protect my financial interest. I will sue for partition, and the judge will order the house sold at auction. Deborah looked up. Her face was gray. She realized, finally, that I wasn't bluffing. She realized that the quiet, helpful Kayla had died in that basement laundry room. You would put your mother on the street, she asked, her voice trembling. I am giving you 90 days to save yourself, I said. That is more than you gave me when you shoved my desk into the wall. I am giving you a choice. Stand up or sell out. I leaned back in my chair. If you choose option B, I will pay the mortgage arrears $4,000 today. That is my parting gift. That brings the loan current. After that, I never pay another cent. You take over the internet, the electric, the water, and the mortgage, and you spend the next 3 months finding a lender who will take me off the title. Carter, Deborah said, turning to him. Her voice was urgent. Carter, look at me. Carter was staring at the table, his jaw working. You have to get a job, Deborah said. We can't lose the house. But my stream, Carter began. Forget the stream, Deborah snapped. It was the first time I had ever heard her raise her voice at him. Do you hear her? She is going to sell the house. You have to work. Carter, you have to help me. Carter looked at me. He looked for the sister who used to sneak him $20 for movies. He looked for the sister who fixed his typos. She wasn't there. You're a monster, he whispered. I am a mirror, I said. I am showing you exactly what you look like. Deborah let out a long, shuddering breath. She picked up the pen. She looked at the refinancing agreement. It was a promise to remove me. It was a promise to take responsibility. She didn't sign it immediately. She looked at me for a long time. The anger in her eyes faded, replaced by a deep, profound sadness. It was the look of someone realizing that the golden goose hadn't just flown away. It had turned into a hawk. I treated you like a machine, she said softly. The words hit me in the chest. I hadn't expected them. I expected excuses. I expected guilt trips. I did, she continued, tears spilling over her lashes. I thought you were just built to carry things. I thought you didn't feel the weight because you never complained. I treated you like an appliance, Kayla, like a fridge that I could just open and take from. My throat tightened. It was the apology I had waited 33 years to hear. It didn't fix the money. It didn't fix the lost trust. But it acknowledged the reality. I am not a machine, Mom, I said, my voice thick. I am just a person, and I am tired. I know, she whispered. I know. She signed the paper. She slid it to Carter. Sign it, she ordered him. And tomorrow, you are going to the staffing agency on Main Street. Mom, sign it, she yelled, slamming her hand down. Or I will sell the mixer myself. Carter jumped. He looked at his mother, terrified. He had never seen the enabler turn off the tap. He grabbed the pen. He signed. It was messy, angry, and resentful. But it was legal. I took the papers. I checked the signatures. Okay, I said. I will wire the mortgage payment to the bank directly this afternoon. The internet is in your name as of midnight. Good luck. I stood up. I packed my laptop. I packed the files. I walked to the door. Kayla, Deborah called out. I stopped, my hand on the handle. I didn't turn around. Will we see you? She asked. Not for a while, I said. You have a lot of work to do, and so do I. I walked out. I walked out of the sterile office, into the bright sunlight of the street. I took a deep breath. The air tasted different. It didn't taste like guilt anymore. It tasted like zero balance. Epilogue. 6 months later. The morning light in my studio is different from the light in the basement. It is unfiltered. It hits the bamboo plant I bought for the windowsill, a plant that I water, and that grows simply because I care for it. I sat at my desk, a real desk, solid walnut, bought with the bonus check I received last month. I took a sip of my coffee. It was a pour-over, made slowly, just the way I liked it. My phone chimed with a notification from my bank. Incoming transfer. $150. Sender Deborah Mitchell. Memo payment 4 of 60. It wasn't much. At this rate, it would take them 5 years to pay back the loose change debts, and they would never pay back the $29,000. But that wasn't the point. The point was that the money was flowing in the right direction. I opened the email from the bank. Loan modification complete. Borrower removed Kayla Mitchell. They had done it. It had gone down to the wire. Carter had gotten a job at a logistics warehouse, ironically, a competitor of one of my clients. He worked the night shift. He hated it. He posted about how much he hated it every day. But his pay stubs, combined with Deborah's pension, had been enough to refinance the loan. I was free. I checked Instagram. I still followed Carter. Though we hadn't spoken since the meeting, he had posted a photo yesterday. It wasn't a staged shot of him pretending to be a CEO. It was a picture of him in his high-vis vest, looking tired, holding a coffee cup. The caption read, "The grind is actually real. New mic coming next month. Paid for by me." It had 12 likes. One of them was mine. He wasn't famous. He probably never would be. But for the first time, he was real. A knock came at my door. I opened it. It was a delivery driver. "Package for Kayla Mitchell." "That's me." He handed me a box. It was heavy. I brought it inside and opened it. Inside was a Herman Miller Aeron chair. Brand new, carbon black. There was no card, but I checked the shipping label. The billing reference was C. Mitchell, warehouse payroll deduction. He had bought me my chair back. It probably took him 2 months of wages. I ran my hand over the mesh back. I sat down in it. It fit perfectly. I spun around in the quiet. Sunlit room. People think revenge is about destruction. They think it's about burning the house down and salting the earth. But as I sat there, safe in my own space, credit score climbing, future unanchored, I realized the truth. Revenge isn't about making them suffer. It's about letting them suffer the consequences of their own actions so they can finally learn how to survive. I had taken away their crutch, and they had fallen. But they had picked themselves up. I rolled my chair over to the window and looked out at the city. I wasn't the load-bearing wall anymore. I was just Kayla, and for the first time in 33 years, that was enough. Thank you so much for listening to this story. It was a long journey, but I think we all learned something about boundaries and self-respect today. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever been the bank for your family? How did you handle it? And please, let me know where you are tuning in from. I love seeing our community grow from all over the world. If you enjoyed this story, please make sure to subscribe to Maya Revenge Stories. Hit that like button to support the channel. And don't forget to press the hype button so this story can be heard by more people who might need the courage to stand up for themselves. See you in the next video.